2 years ago, I counted over 40 clover patches across my front and side yard, and today I have 0. Not a single one. And the total cost to get there was under $15. Now I know a lot of folks have been told that clover is nearly impossible to get rid of, or that you need to hire a professional lawn service and spend hundreds of dollars on repeated treatments. I believed that myself for a long time. But after experimenting with a specific combination of a selective herbicide and some basic lawn care adjustments, I found a method that wipes out clover completely and, more importantly, keeps it from coming back. Here's the thing, it's simpler than you think. In today's video, I'm going to walk you through exactly how I eliminated every bit of clover in my lawn, what product I used, how I mixed it, when I applied it, and the follow-up steps that make the results permanent. And stay with me to the end because I'll share a simple trick using your mower that most people never think about, but it's one of the most effective ways to prevent clover from ever getting a foothold again. Let's walk through it together. Now, I want to be straight with you. For years, I handled clover the wrong way. I would go out to the hardware store, grab whatever general purpose weed and feed product was on the shelf, throw it across the whole lawn, and hope for the best. Sometimes the clover would yellow a little, maybe curl up at the edges, and I'd think I was making progress. But 2 or 3 weeks later, it was right back, sometimes even thicker than before. I did this for at least 4 seasons before I finally admitted it wasn't working. If you've been doing the same thing, you're not alone. I was right there with you. The problem wasn't effort. I was putting in plenty of effort. The problem was that I didn't understand what clover actually is, how it grows, and why a general weed and feed just isn't designed to handle it effectively. Then I started experimenting with a targeted approach, and what I saw in the first 3 weeks completely reset my thinking about how to deal with this weed. Here's what I learned that changed everything. Clover is not like most broadleaf weeds. It's a legume, which means it has a unique ability to pull nitrogen directly from the air and fix it into the soil through its root system. That's why clover tends to show up in lawns that are low on nitrogen. Your grass is starving, but the clover is thriving because it can feed itself. Research from Purdue University's turf science program confirms this. Clover is an indicator plant. When it moves into your lawn aggressively, it's telling you something about your soil fertility. And once you understand this, the whole strategy clicks into place. You don't just kill the clover. You also change the conditions that invited it in the first place. That's the difference between getting rid of clover for a few weeks and getting rid of it for good. So now let me show you exactly how to do it. The first thing you need to do is identify exactly what type of clover you're dealing with, because there are a couple of common types, and they behave a little differently. The most common one by far is white clover, also called Dutch white clover. It's low-growing, spreads by runners along the surface, and has those small, round white flower heads. The second type you might see is microclover, which looks similar but has much smaller leaves. And occasionally you'll run into red clover, which grows taller with pinkish-purple flowers. For about 90% of homeowners, you're dealing with white clover. Here's how to confirm it. Get down close to the ground and look at the leaves. White clover has 3 rounded leaflets, each one about the size of your thumbnail, and most of them will have a lighter-colored V-shaped band across each leaflet. The stems creep horizontally along the soil, sending down roots at each node. If that matches what you're seeing, you've got white clover, and the approach I'm going to show you will take care of it. Now, you also want to get a general sense of how widespread the problem is. If clover covers less than about 20% of your lawn, you can get away with spot treating. If it's more widespread than that, you're going to want to do a blanket application across the whole lawn. Either way, the product and the method are the same. The only difference is how much area you're covering. Now here's where the real work begins, and this is the part that makes the biggest difference. You need to pick the right herbicide. and I'm going to save you a lot of time and money by telling you exactly what works. The product I recommend is a selective herbicide that contains the active ingredient triclopyr. You can find this in products like Ortho-Weed B Gone Chickweed, Clover, and Oxalis Killer. That specific formula is important. Don't just grab the regular Weed B Gone. You want the version that says Chickweed, Clover, and Oxalis on the label, because that's the one with triclopyr as the primary active ingredient. Here's why this matters. Most general broadleaf herbicides use 2,4-D as their main ingredient. 2,4-D is decent on dandelions and plantain, but it's only moderately effective on clover. Triclopyr, on the other hand, is specifically effective against legumes, and since clover is a legume, it hits it hard. After testing both approaches in side-by-side sections of my own lawn over 2 seasons, the triclopyr-based product killed clover down to the root within 10 to 14 days, while the 2,4-D product only burned back the top growth and the clover returned within a month. Now the conventional approach is to mix up a tank sprayer and just start blasting everything. What I've found works better is to be deliberate about your mixing ratio and your application method. Here's exactly what I do. I use a 1-gallon pump sprayer for spot treatments, or a 4-gallon backpack sprayer if I'm covering the whole lawn. For the Ortho product I mentioned, the mixing ratio is typically 6 tablespoons per gallon of water for broadcast applications. Always check the label on whatever product you have, but that's been my standard ratio, and it works. Fill your sprayer about halfway with water first, add the concentrate, then fill the rest of the way and give it a good shake. This helps it mix evenly. You also want to add a small amount of surfactant, and I'll explain why in a moment. A surfactant is basically a substance that helps the herbicide stick to the waxy surface of the clover leaf, instead of beating up and rolling off. You can buy a dedicated turf surfactant, or honestly, a 1/4 teaspoon of plain liquid dish soap per gallon of water works just fine. Trust me on this one. That small addition makes a noticeable difference in how well the product works. Now I want to talk about timing, because this is where most people go wrong and it's the #1 reason their clover comes back. The best time to spray clover is in the early to mid-fall for cool season grass lawns, or in late spring for warm season grass lawns. For those of you in USDA zones 3 through 7 growing cool season grasses, like Kentucky bluegrass, perennial ryegrass, or tall fescue, aim to spray in September or early October, when daytime temperatures are consistently between 60 and 80 degrees Fahrenheit. For warm season grass folks in zones 8 through 10, growing Bermuda, Zoysia, or St. Augustine, late April through May is your window, again when temperatures are in that 60 to 80 degree range. Here's why timing matters so much. Clover is actively growing and pulling nutrients into its root system during these temperature windows. When you apply triclopyr during active growth, the plant absorbs the herbicide and translocates it all the way down to the roots. If you spray during the heat of summer when clover is partially dormant and stressed, the product sits on the leaf surface, maybe burns back the top growth, but never reaches the root system. That's exactly what happened to me for years when I was spraying in July and wondering why the clover kept coming back. You also want to spray on a calm day with no rain in the forecast for at least 24 hours. Wind will cause drift onto plants you don't want to hit, and rain will wash the product off before it has time to absorb. Morning applications tend to work best because the leaves often have a slight amount of moisture from dew, which actually helps the herbicide adhere, and temperatures are still moderate. Now, before I get into the next part of this process, I want to mention something. What I'm showing you today is just one piece of a much bigger system I put together. I created a guide called Larry's 30-Day Weed Kill Protocol that lays out the exact day-by-day plan I follow for clover, crabgrass, dandelions, and the other most common lawn weeds. It covers pre-emergent timing, post-emergent application techniques, like what we're talking about today, spot treatment methods, and a complete seasonal maintenance calendar. If you want the full plan in one place, just scan the QR code on screen or click the link in the description. It's only $17, and it's written the same way I talk in these videos. No fluff, just the plan. All right, let's keep going. So you've sprayed your lawn. Now here's what to expect and what to do next. Within 3 to 5 days, you should start to see the clover leaves curling and twisting. They'll look distorted, almost like they're crinkling up on themselves. By day 7 to 10, the clover should be turning brown and dying back noticeably. By day 14, most of the treated clover should be completely dead and crispy. Now here's what I've learned after doing this across multiple seasons. One application will kill about 80 to 85% of the clover. But there will be some spots, especially in thick patches where the leaves overlapped and shielded the lower growth from the spray, where a few survivors hang on. That's completely normal. What you want to do is wait 14 to 21 days after your first application. Then go back and do a second targeted spray on any remaining clover. This second pass catches everything the first one missed and gets you to that 98 to 100% kill rate. I'll be honest, for years I only did one application and then got frustrated when clover popped back up a month later. I thought the product wasn't working. It was working fine. I just wasn't finishing the job. That second application is the difference between mostly gone and completely gone. Trust me on this one. After both applications, give the dead clover about a week to fully dry out, then rake it up or mow over it to clear the debris. You'll likely have some bare spots where the clover used to be, and that's perfectly fine. We're going to address that in the next part. This next part is where most people stop, and it's the exact reason their clover problem comes back the following year. You've killed the clover. Great. But remember what I said earlier about clover being an indicator of low nitrogen? If you just kill the clover and walk away, you haven't changed the underlying condition that brought it in. Those bare spots are an open invitation for clover seeds still in the soil to germinate and fill right back in. So here's what you need to do. First, overseed those bare patches. If you're in a cool season lawn area, use a quality seed like a tall fescue blend or a Kentucky bluegrass and perennial ryegrass mix. I personally like Jonathan Green Black Beauty Ultra for this. Scratch up the bare soil lightly with a garden rake. Scatter seed at a rate of about 4 to 6 pounds per 1,000 square feet of bare area and keep it moist until germination, which usually takes 7 to 14 days depending on the grass type. Second, and this is just as important, apply a good lawn fertilizer. You want something with a decent amount of nitrogen. I recommend a fertilizer with a ratio of around 24:0:6 or something similar. Apply it at the rate listed on the bag across your entire lawn, not just the bare spots. What you're doing here is raising the nitrogen level in the soil so that your grass has the advantage. When your grass is well fed and thick, it crowds out clover naturally. A thick, healthy lawn is the single best long-term defense against clover coming back. I generally fertilize my lawn about every 6 to 8 weeks during the growing season. For cool season lawns, that means applications in early fall, late fall, and then again in spring. For warm season lawns, you're focusing on late spring through summer. This consistent feeding schedule keeps your turf dense enough that clover seeds struggle to find any open soil to take root in. Now let me walk you through some of the most common patterns I see that keep people stuck in a cycle of clover problems year after year. The first pattern is relying on weed and feed products as your only line of defense. I did this myself for years. Here's the issue. Most weed and feed granular products need to stick to the weed's leaf surface to work. That means you have to apply them when the lawn is wet so the granules adhere. But the application rate is designed around the fertilizer component, not the herbicide. So you often end up with too little herbicide actually contacting the clover to kill it. What works better is to separate your weed control and your fertilization into two different tasks. Spray the clover with a liquid herbicide for direct, targeted contact, and then fertilize separately. You'll get far better results on both fronts. The second pattern is mowing too short. This is a big one. When you scalp your lawn down to 2 inches or less, you're thinning out the canopy and letting sunlight reach the soil surface. Clover loves that. It's a low-growing plant that thrives when it can get direct sunlight. If you raise your mowing height to 3.5 to 4 inches, your grass forms a thick canopy that shades the soil, and clover simply can't compete. This one change alone made a massive difference in my lawn. The third pattern is ignoring soil pH. Clover tends to do well in slightly acidic soil. If your soil pH is below 6, which is common in many parts of the country, clover will thrive while your grass struggles. A simple soil test from your local extension office, which usually costs around $15 to $20, will tell you your pH. If it's low, applying pelletized lime at a rate of about 40 to 50 pounds per 1,000 square feet, once or twice a year, can gradually bring your pH up to the 6.5 to 7 range, where most grasses perform their best, and clover has a harder time competing. The fourth pattern is skipping the fall pre-emergent for winter annual weeds. A lot of people put down pre-emergent in the spring for crabgrass and then forget about it. But clover seeds can germinate in late summer and early fall when soil temperatures are still warm. A fall application of a pre-emergent like proteamine can help prevent new clover seedlings from establishing. This won't kill existing clover, but it adds another layer of protection against new plants filling in. Now, I promised you a bonus tip at the beginning of this video, and here it is. This one surprised me when I first tried it, but it works. After you've done your herbicide applications and overseeded the bare spots, start mowing your lawn at the highest setting your mower allows for about 4 to 6 weeks. For most mowers, that's going to be around 4 to 4.5 inches. Here's why this makes such a huge difference. That extra height does 2 things at once. First, it shades the soil aggressively, which suppresses any remaining clover seeds from germinating. Second, the taller grass blades produce more food through photosynthesis, which helps your new seedlings establish faster and your existing grass thicken up more quickly. I tested this side by side on my own property. One section I mowed at 3 inches and the other at 4.25 inches, both after the same clover treatment. The section mowed at 4.25 inches had about 60% less clover regrowth over the following 2 months. That's a significant difference, and it costs you nothing. You're just adjusting a lever on your mower. After those 4 to 6 weeks, you can gradually bring your mowing height back down to your preferred level, usually around 3 to 3.5 inches for most cool season lawns. But during that critical post-treatment window, going tall gives your grass the competitive edge it needs to choke out any stragglers. So let me bring it all together. Everything I showed you today works, but it works best when it's part of a complete system. If you want the full plan laid out day by day, including which products to use, when to apply them, how to identify the 7 most common lawn weeds, and a seasonal maintenance calendar that keeps weeds from coming back, take a look at Larry's 30-day weed kill protocol. It's the same system I follow every year. Inside, you'll find pre-emergent timing schedules for both cool season and warm season lawns, post-emergent application techniques with exact mixing ratios, spot treatment methods for stubborn patches, and the complete seasonal program that ties it all together. Just scan the QR code on screen or click the link in the description. It's $17, and it's written the same way I talk in these videos, plain English, no fluff. Listen, I went from a lawn that was more clover than grass to one where I honestly can't find a single patch of it. It didn't happen overnight, but it happened in one season using exactly the steps I just showed you. I'd love to hear how it goes for you. Drop a comment below and let me know what your clover situation looks like right now, and I'll do my best to help you out. Thanks for spending some time with me today, and I'll see you in the next one.